Yeah, last night into the wee hours, the Senate was meeting and woke up this morning to headlines that Big Beautiful Bill had picked up enough votes to 51 Republican votes to move ahead. I think J.D. Vance would have been a tiebreaker if needed.
And what Trump is railing about is $3 billion a day in interest. So he's mad at the Federal Reserve because if they would go down from, say, home mortgage rate, but I mean, whatever the Fed's actual rate is, 4.5 or something down to 2, we'd save $1.5 billion a day. And that would be, a third of $1 trillion. That would really help.
On the eve of the signing of the Big Beautiful Bill, Victor Davis Hanson discusses why the Big Beautiful Bill story is so compelling. It's not just because Washington finally passing something. Victor warned us about the debt crisis months ago, when even Republican supporters had reservations and Moody's cut our bond rating for the first time since 1917. That's the backdrop that makes this victory so surprising. We're burning $1 billion a day in interest, sitting on $37 trillion in debt, yet somehow, this bill found a way to fund border security and claw back $300 billion. The question isn't whether it passed, it's whether the math actually works.
But there are enough Republicans in the House who are just not in love with, or the Senate, not in love with this Big Beautiful Bill. What are your thoughts on this and the politics of it?
I have reservations about it because of the spending. Moody's, the bond adjudicator, I think that was patently political. It just lowered the bond rating of the United States government from AAA to, I think, A1A. The first time in history since 1917. When you're talking about giving tax breaks on tips, on Social Security, on maybe military or first responders, that's going to take a while. I'm not sure if that's going to be the type of incentives that prime growth of the economy. So what I'm getting at is, right now, the biggest problem we have is debt. Debt. $37 trillion in aggregate national debt, basically $2 trillion in annual deficits and 1.2 in trade deficits. And we're getting kind of mixed messages. I know that Trump want the deregulation and tax cuts, that they'll continue, will be great because that will grow the economy. The energy prices will grow the economy. 8 to 10 trillion in foreign investment. We're not getting enough messages. It's only been 3 months and they say they have 160 to 170 billion. Does that mean that in the next quarter, you're going to get 160? I'd like to know. And if they get 500 billion, that would make a big difference. You get close to maybe just $500 billion deficit, but we're not getting the information. So we're getting two signals that we're spending a lot of money. We're going to increase the defense budget, for example. We're having fights over cutting Medicaid. And then we're told we're going to get more revenue, but I don't think the tariffs are going to bring that much more revenue. We've discussed that. So what is going to be the bottom line? And is that why the Fed and Moody's are being pretty hard on this administration? They just see too much debt that they inherited and they haven't addressed it. I don't know the answers, but I would sure like to see a Simpson-Bowles 2.0 commission to just go back and say, you've got to do this. This will get us a balanced budget in 3 years. In 10 years, this will cut the debt in half or something. And we need to have that. But he's the only president of the 21st century that's talked about these things, the debt, the trade deficit, the budget deficit. But we got to get a clearer picture of what's going to happen, is what I'm saying.
Victor captures the exact skepticism that dominated Washington just weeks ago. He questioned whether we could afford massive spending, with Moody's slashing our credit rating and the Fed stalling on rate cuts. The 1% remittance tax isn't just policy. It's $63 billion a year that previously flowed to Mexico, now funding American border infrastructure. When Hanson talks about self-deportation, he's describing something critics said was impossible. Yet here we are, watching daily crossings drop from 10,000 to near zero, something that has shocked even its proponents.
Well, it was so huge and comprehensive that anybody could find something they didn't like. Anybody could find a lot. It had really good border security. It was finishing the wall. I like the tax on university endowments, and tax on remittances is in there as well. Everything is in there. So it's hard to, it's not a lean, mean bill where you just get one ideological theme in it. It's got everything in it. They said that there would be no self-deportation. Romney mentioned it in 2012. They laughed at him. Trump said it during the campaign, we're going to do self-deportation. If you give somebody $1,000, which they do, and you say you're going to pay for a flight deep in back into the country, not across the border, and you say that anybody who gets caught illegally will not be able to come in with a green card. I don't know. Some people said 10, I don't know what the bill says, 10 years or forever. And you say that doesn't apply to you. Just come to us. We'll give you $1,000. We'll fly you free back to Chiapas or somewhere. And then if you want to get a green card, you can apply and you won't be disqualified. That's an attractive argument. And almost 1 million people have taken it. And it's actually, if you look at the breakdown, it's much cheaper than rounding them up and deporting them and all that regulatory process. So that's another thing that they lied to us about and said, oh, you can't deport people. They'll never go back. Deport, voluntary. It worked. The idea that not one I don't know. I'm trying to sound stunned because if we had this conversation 9 months ago and I said, Jack, if they elect Donald Trump, we'll go from 10,000 illegal entries a month to not one. And then we're going to deport 1 million people and they're going to do it voluntarily. You say, oh, Victor, don't say that on the air. It's embarrassing. Or if I said, we're short 45,000 recruits, but most of them are rural, mostly white, lower middle class people from the interior of the country that were turned off by DI or the vaccination mandate, or they were hectored by Mark Miller, and they're going to come back, man. They're going to start coming, and we're going to fulfill every recruitment. Nobody think that was possible.
How did the tariffs in the Big Beautiful Bill defy every prediction? The debt hawks feared inflation. The trade experts predicted economic chaos, yet the opposite happened. Foreign suppliers absorbed tariff costs rather than lose American market share. Treasury receipts spiked beyond projections, and the Fed felt confident enough to cut rates. When Hanson discusses the $300 billion cushion, he's describing a complete reversal of the May pessimism. The consortium of interests that created the immigration crisis suddenly faced a bill that turned their revenue streams into American funding mechanisms.
I do give him credit that the tariffs have brought in more revenue than anybody had thought. I don't know if that's going to continue, but they're bringing in a lot of revenue. Not as much as it's $1 trillion, maybe over a decade, but not nearly in a year or two. And that guy named, I don't know, Sloak, he was Tilson Sloak. He was the Apollo investment manager, director. And he said, was Trump right and we were wrong? And he pointed out that he made a lot of good points, that when you have these huge foreign concerns like Germany and Japan and South Korea and China, and they want that U.S. market, and they are making fantastic profit margins, they may want to absorb the cost of the tariff to remain competitive, and they still will make money because they're making so much, and nobody had really talked about that.
1 month ago, we faced debt downgrades and political paralysis. Today, we have funded border security, redirected cartel revenue streams, and created fiscal breathing room. Whether this represents Washington's first real policy victory in decades or a dangerous debt gamble disguised as success, that's the debate shaping America's future. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit that like button so more people see it. And if you want more sharp takes on global power plays, go ahead and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.